Alright, here we are, guys, back for another Golf Clash tutorial here. And let's set this one up here. Red pen, that's perfect. So what usually ends up happening here is we kind of have this red line here, and this is more towards the cataclysm level distance-wise. So, I'm going to throw maybe Cat 6 up here. It's kind of relatively decent priority shot here. For this one hole, and same with Guardian 6. We're going to put Sniper, 8 to 10 kind of right below here. You can get away with an 8, but you're not going to have that range. You're going to kind of really have a gap here. There's no reason you can't play this with a gap, but you would have to basically assume that you've kind of gone, for instance, say 8 rings, which gets a little bit challenging. And so that's kind of the main reason that I kind of want to throw those clubs up there as kind of higher priority. In fact, let me, just for this one kind of hole here as well, we'll throw in, oh, I should have taken, I don't know why I didn't. Hammerhead's going to have just a little bit more range than Sniper as well. I just want to kind of emphasize that, Sniper down here at kind of lowest priority still has the potential to win this, no question. Because typically you'll only play that shot anyway when we get a tailwind. And what's good about a tailwind is that it's going to fly beyond the target anyway. So even though I can't set up and maybe easily adjust, I can still come up with the perfect adjustment with just kind of some kind of spatial reasoning type skills and just trying to essentially, master, how it's going to fly out. So let's take a look at this one. Here's pretty much the shot, more or less. I pretty much try to set up very close to this max line. It's usually, maybe about 2 rings from the edge here. Second hop here, third hop, and then just kind of release out towards the hole. Now, typically, this is pretty much a tailwind shot. So, in this tailwind situation, which we're talking about those top half shots here, I'll usually try to do right about 1 backspin or so. Should usually take care of it. I'm going to start to come off of it a little bit. And I'll pretty much only use it in these tailwind situations. As I mentioned, it's going to be very, very close to the max line here where you set up. This is very close to the cat line. So if this is cat line, that just tells you, I usually assume that I've kind of gone 1 ring with cat, even as is. So I still tried to land kind of a yard beyond 180 where cat is landing. So with that in mind, you're not going to want to try to overpower a Sniper. It's just going to, kind of cause more harm than good more times than not. So we're pretty much going to be looking at, somewhere in the half to 1 range for the backspin, and pretty much only for those 3 cases. So let's kind of write our tailwind case in here. I'll usually use pretty close to maybe max plus 25, max plus 30, somewhere in there in the ballpark. Keep in mind that I'll have to assume that I kind of already went a ring, typically, at least. Because that's, if I have a 180, 179, I'm still going to be with a power 3 ball relatively maxed on this line. So, and I do have to land it relatively aggressive towards this top to make sure that this second hop clears. That's kind of the most complicated variable about this shot, is making sure that you can do that. So in pretty much the rest of the cases, other than these 3, we're going to kind of put a second case in here, and we're going to be, kind of rolling with driver, and we can kind of prioritize in terms of accuracy here. So we can start to, basically just say, the more accurate, we don't really need spin. It's not even really a variable here. So we'll kind of prioritize next based on accuracy only. So Thor's hammer, 4 to 6 here. And it'll kind of go in this fashion for this, and then extra mile will be all the way down here at the bottom. So as I mentioned, for the most part, backspin doesn't come into too much of a problem here. For the side wind case, it's usually somewhere in the neighborhood of about 3, more or less, maybe even 3 1/4. It's really going to depend on your land zone. So you'll kind of have to master this. And as I mentioned, these are going to be backspin values. So everything on here is going to be backspin, 3 to 3 1/2. And it really is just going to vary depending on how aggressive you land towards the edge. But ideally, you want to have some high backspin so you can stop it. So landing more aggressive towards the water is usually beneficial to you so you don't roll through. I usually, can end up winning just on my distance control alone in this tour. So if you hit, pin high with the driver, you're going to really put yourself in a chance to win more times than not. And as the headwind starts to come in, you might need to start to back off of this. I'm going to kind of put towards 3 here, maybe 2 1/2 here, and 2.75. The thing about the driver is, you can't really take off too much in terms of the driver. It really doesn't, the headwind for the most part won't, if the headwind gets kind of crazy, you could maybe go down to as low as 2. But let me just kind of write in here, 2.25 to 2.5. And you're going to want to land it around here. As I mentioned, the backspin won't kind of, if I really start to take off of that, it's going to kind of roll through almost no matter what to the back fringe. So you really got to have, kind of aggressive land zone to be able to kind of crank the spin up if you want to give yourself a really good chance. And it's going to be the same land zone either way, but the shot kind of changes. So for this side wind case, I might go just a little bit, just maybe fractionally below max here. So let's talk about this side wind. Maybe max -10, -5, somewhere in there. For the side wind case. But as we start to get into this headwind case, it's at least going to be, max -5 to, as much as max 20, max plus 20. So somewhere in this range. So on average, for the average case, we're at least going to go max and maybe max plus 10 on average. So, and that's, when I give you ranges like this pretty much tells you why Tour 12 specifically, or these later tours, why so many people struggle. Because the range is, 20-25% difference in wind adjustment. So the best players in the game, they understand the scenarios and they can make accommodations for that. But what, a lot of the guys watching these videos or whatever, they're kind of rely on things people tell them. And, that's, one of the things that you really need to kind of step away from is you really need to start being able to play more dynamically and be able to switch in between situations, be able to kind of play your rings according to the situation. So knowing these cases is going to be, the best thing that'll kind of get you over the hurdle to be able to master this tour. Good luck with this hole, guys, and I'll see you guys on the future tutorials.